Hey guys, it's me, SSJ Kage, and today I'm coming back at you with another video. What if Deku was a firebender? So let's get right into it. So here we start off where Deku was in preschool. So Deku actually awakened his quirk on the same day as Bakugo. And so when Bakugo was making mini explosions, Deku's hand started literally setting on fire. He couldn't control this, so in order to keep his hands from burning, the teachers threw water onto his hands so that it would extinguish the flame. And eventually Deku got a degree of control over this before he left preschool, so now Deku's hands weren't just randomly catching on fire. So after Deku awakened his quirk for the first time, Deku's mother took him to the quirk doctor. And so he asked what Deku's quirk was, and Deku said he got his hands to catch on fire. And then the quirk doctor asked what Deku's mother's quirk was and what his father's quirk was. She explained to him that she is able to pull small objects towards him, and how Deku's father has fire breath. So without even checking to see if it actually was a quirk, the quirk doctor just accepted this, and he said that it was just a combination of his parents' quirks, even though he didn't know that it actually wasn't. He didn't know that it was actually just firebending. So here we skip up to where Deku and Bakugo were in middle school, and Deku was actually never bullied by Bakugo. He wasn't bullied because, one, they were close friends and rivals, and two, everyone thought that Deku had a greater quirk than Bakugo. Deku's capable of generating fire from pretty much any place on his body and manipulating it, while Bakugo is just able to generate explosions from his hands. So everyone just said that Deku's quirk was stronger than Bakugo's, and they didn't even think about him. So actually, Bakugo was a little bit jealous of Deku, even though they still were friends. So Bakugo never throws Deku's hero notebook out of the window, and so that confrontation doesn't happen. But so Deku started walking home, and just today he decided to take a shortcut. And while he was walking through the shortcut, he saw that this weird sludge was coming out of the sewers, and then it grabbed onto him. It was a sludge villain. So while the sludge villain started suffocating Deku, Deku started slipping in and out of consciousness. And Deku knew that he couldn't die right now because he had to grow up and become a really strong pro hero. And so this angered Deku, and Deku started breathing fire. Fire started coming out of his mouth, and fire started coming out of his hands. So this boiled the sludge villain, and the sludge villain just came right off of Deku because he didn't want to risking getting burned anymore. So Deku told the sludge villain to go away from him or else he'd get burned again, but the sludge villain just kept going on. He wanted to take control of Deku's body so that he'd have a strong quirk like that. But Deku threw two well-placed fireballs at the sludge villain's eyes, and that staggered him back a little bit and boiled that area. So Deku took down the sludge villain by knocking it out with one final fire punch, which sent it flying back. And All Might had seen the entire thing. He didn't step in because he knew that Deku would be able to handle this, but he just saw the entire thing. So he was impressed by Deku. And so he walked over to him and told Deku that he had some real promise. So Deku asked All Might if he thought that he could become the number one hero, and All Might told him like a brutally honest answer. He told him that his quirk was really similar to Endeavor's, and he told Deku that the only reason why Endeavor can't really become number one is because his quirk has a naturally destructive nature. Fire naturally destroys things. So this kind of put Deku down a little bit. He was kind of upset when he heard that All Might had said this, but he just took it and he went home knowing that he still could become a really, really strong hero. So All Might bottled up the sludge villain and leapt away. And then Deku started walking home, and he heard a loud boom. He turned an alleyway to see where the sound was coming from, and he saw that it was the very same sludge villain that had just attacked him, and it was now attacking his best friend Bakugo. Deku looked around to see that none of the other pro heroes were trying to help him, and this angered Deku, and this kind of pushed him over the edge, and he rushed at the sludge villain. Deku created 2 large fire plumes and threw them both at the sludge villain, boiling it. This caused the sludge villain to stagger a little bit and almost release Bakugo. He released just his head just enough so that Bakugo's mouth was able to get out. And once he did this, Bakugo yelled at Deku to run because he didn't want his best friend to get killed by the sludge villain too. But Deku stayed because he wasn't just gonna stand there and let his literal best friend get burned by the very same villain that had just get killed by the very same villain that had just attacked him. So Deku leapt into action and generated 2 more fire plumes and threw them right at the sludge villain. Now this caused the sludge villain to release Bakugo enough that 1 explosion was enough to get Bakugo out of there, and the 2 boys were safe. When All Might had came onto the scene and saw this, he saw that it was the very same kid that had just been attacked by the sludge villain less than an hour ago. And All Might asked the 2 boys if they were okay, and he went home. On his way home, Bakugo stopped Deku, and the reason why he stopped him was so that he could thank Deku for saving him from that villain back a little while ago. And Deku said it was no problem. He knew that Bakugo would have done the same for him. And little did Deku know, a little bit of jealousy was actually boiling inside of Bakugo, because Deku was just able to effortlessly take down that villain and save him. But Deku said, next time we spar, we'll get to see which one of us is the stronger one. And Bakugo just smirks and says, "Oh, I can guarantee to you that I'm stronger now." And Deku doesn't know what this means, but he just walks home. So coincidentally, the next day, both boys apply for UA at the same time. And everyone is just cheering them on because they know that they are the 2 strongest kids in their class. So they don't dispute that they are applying for UA. So for the next 10 months, it's just a hard grind for Deku to train. So for the first 3 months of the UA entrance, before the UA entrance exams, Deku starts taking rigorous MMA classes. So Deku realized that if he was ever in a situation where he wasn't able to use his quirk, he should be able to defend himself using hand-to-hand combat. So Deku does those rigorous MMA class for those first 3 months. So in these first 3 months, Deku actually almost masters it. He becomes incredibly good at just straight up hand-to-hand combat. He is able to take down most of the people in the gym that he goes to pretty easily with his MMA in just the first month and a half. So by the end of that 3 months, Deku is just incredibly powerful with hand-to-hand combat. So that's just the first 3 months out of the way. So for the last 7 months, he focuses more on his firebending. After this, Deku focuses on his heat tolerance for the next month. So Deku starts taking incredibly hot showers to build up his tolerance for heat, so that eventually Deku will be able to turn up the heat on his flames even more, and he won't end up burning himself. He also does the opposite, where he basically takes freezing baths, and he uses firebending to heat his body up. So he also builds up a tolerance to cold temperatures, as well as a really big tolerance to really hot temperatures. So for the next 2 months, which are the 5th and 6th months before the UA entrance exams, Deku focuses on really making as much fire as he can. And while he's doing this training, he realizes that his firebending is actually bigger and more controlled when he uses it during the day when he's out in the sun than when he's using it at night. So Deku purposefully starts training at night and getting his body used to using a lot less sunlight energy to help his firebending, so that once he starts using it during the day, his firebending will be like a lot more powerful than it would be before. So Deku starts training, like I said, with his firebending at night and pushing his firebending without the sun to its limits. And he does that for the first month of this little segment, and then for the last month of this segment, he focuses on creating as much fire as he can in the sun. So now Deku has really maximized his training potential with this, because not only he knows how to make his fire most effective during the night if he's ever forced to do that. So for the next 2 months, which are the 7th and 8th months, Deku really focuses on the intensity of his flames and getting them as hot as he possibly can. So right now, Deku is capable of igniting a tree on fire by just throwing one fireball. Usually before the sludge villain attack, that would have just done really nothing. It would have just been a fireball that he threw at the tree. But then within the first week, he's capable of just igniting that tree on fire. And then by the end of the first month, Deku is capable of melting concrete with his flames. So his flames are really, really intense now. And they're almost to the point where they start burning him to a point where he can't use his quirk anymore. But Deku just keeps... so for the last month of this 2-month segment, Deku focuses on sustaining intense heat. So he's already done that heat training so he can take more heat. But now he's focusing on sustaining intense fire plumes, because the hotter his flames are, the more energy it takes out of him. So now he just works on the stamina he's focusing on stamina with his intense flames. So like I said, his flames are capable of melting concrete now. Well, that's at its peak. He needs to really, really focus to do that. But now at its peak, he's capable of melting concrete to a point where it becomes almost like lava. All of that training leads up to these final 2 months. The 9th month is spent just learning how to manipulate his flames even more. So Deku tries to make more shapes with his flames, and he just learns how to move them more effectively. And the 10th month is spent making super moves, and I'll get into that right now. Aside from just normal fire sweeps, fire jabs, and fire kicks, Deku has created 3 super moves. The first one is called Flamethrower, and basically what it does is Deku just creates a continuous plume of fire that he shoots at an opponent. It's pretty standard. It's not complicated at all. It's just normal fire that he throws at an opponent. The second move is called the Fire Helix, and this one's actually kind of interesting. So Deku creates a spiraling double helix fire formation. So if you want to know what a double helix is, just look at a picture of DNA. That's what a double helix is. And Deku creates a double helix of fire, and he starts spinning it. And he uses this to not quite drill into things, but more effectively burn things. So yeah, that's the Fire Helix. Then the last one is called the Fire Barrage. And basically what Deku does is he creates, he just throws out a bunch of fire jabs at an opponent. So basically it's just a bunch of, let's say 15 to 25 fireballs that he throws out at an opponent to try to push them back or burn them. So those are some pretty standard moves. And yeah. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want part 2 to come out quickly. And part 2 will explore the events of the UA entrance exams with Deku having firebending. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Kumite wa owari. Kakashi no kachi da ne.